everyone, and welcome to Rob Has a Podcast. I'm here today to talk about The Circle. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong. Rob is not here with us today, unfortunately, but I'm here, and we're going to be talking about week 3 of The Circle, season 3, and I have some great guests with me here today. First up is Mike Bloom. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, Taran. You like Rob? You think Rob's a good guy?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All right, well, I got a secret for you. Rob is me. I'm Rob.
What?
Yep, that's me. That was me the whole time.
Player MB is Rob this whole time?
Yeah, and now you know what? I even know Boston. That's how good I was. I was able to pull all those Boston. I am from the East Coast, so I know everything about Boston. So I got you hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Well, this is really impressive, Mike. I mean, I know you were talking as Rob. You're talking about going on a date with, some other people, but what about you and I?
Who knew Taran was a babe? Man, he's him as himself. Ooh. Ooh. My God, we got to talk about Nick's like cartoonish wolf whistles going on here.
All right. Well, we also, of course, have Mari here with us. How you doing, Mari?
Hi, guys. I'm here. And, I just want to say that I think Mike Bloom is a little untrustworthy. Yeah. I think he's untrustworthy, but he is a valuable member of the Circle.
I was gonna say, Mari, have you been watching Black Widow Brigade? Because that's been the internet's opinion as of late. Is that I'm an untrustworthy person? So like, I'm bring it on. Keep it on to me.
Yes.
No, I have to. I have to catch up on Black Widow Brigade. But I am so glad to be here to talk about The Circle. Of course, one of my favorite reality TV shows. It really feels like it snuck up on me. I swear I looked up. I was like, wait, The Circle is back? Oh, great. Something else I have to watch? But then once I got into it, I was like, yes, I can't wait. And this season has been like giving me so much life. And it's kind of giving, my favorite season of The Circle is Brazil. So it's giving Brazil a run for its money for me.
There you go. Well, it seemed like we had blocked her just there for a second, but we do have Aysha with us as well. How you doing, Aysha?
Hey, Taran. I was pretty sure I was blocked, and I was pretty sad about it. But then, no, there was a twist. I came back. And I'm glad to be talking to you again for the third time this week. The busy week, and it feels like in reality TV this year. So very excited to dive into The Circle. I've been loving the season.
Yes. What a third week here of The Circle. It's I've really enjoyed it. I feel like Rob is missing out.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Allow me to be blunt. Week 1 sucked. I was not a fan of week 1. I felt like everyone that they brought in was either like blase, OTT, or in the case of Ava and Chanel, like somehow double jeopardy, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. And I don't know if it's the combination of the people that they brought in, which I liked infinitely more, like just the dynamic that bore out. I mean, I freaking love this two-sided, season 6 of Big Brother aspect we've got going on. I would say that I'm still not in love with the cast completely, but there's at least some really interesting play going on that I think buoys some of the personalities along. And it got to the point where even after week 1, I watched week 2 and I was like, no, come back. It's okay. Trust me, it's getting better. Come back for week 2. And I think that's what happens. And I know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So I think we really, especially given how the way week 3 ended, are really building to a very interesting finale.
Yeah. Week 1 felt like okay, right away we block Ava and Chanel. Great. They're back. Hold on. We got to spend 3 more episodes getting them out again. All right. Show starts week 2. We just crossed that week 1 off. And I agree. I feel like the strategy here in The Circle season 3 has been, I feel like every season it progresses a little bit more, but I actually do think that it has been interesting, and it's been a very strategic season without losing the genuine connections either. People are using the genuine connections they have in a strategic way, and there's really no player left in the game that's like fully like, I just play with my heart. I'm just not even strategic at all. Which I think has been good for the show from my perspective.
Yeah, and this is what I kind of meant by like, this is one of the seasons of the Circle that got strategic way quicker than almost any other season or iteration. And at first I was like, oh, this is like, I always wanted this, and now that I have it, I'm like, I don't know about this. but but now it's caught up with itself. And like I said, I think what was kind of happening was we were getting the strategic stuff like really fast, really early without getting those connections. But once it went on and we got way more connections, I was like, oh, thank God. Because like, I think you guys pointed out last week, I was like, half these people I don't know, like with the catfishes, all of them being on the band. I was like, who? I know the avatar, but then I don't know the person, or I know the person and I don't know the avatar. And it was kind of like, oh God, this is extra strategic and all the people I like are leaving. So this kind of sucks. But I really liked this week. This week was a roller coaster, in a sense of the strategy was so present, and I just was on my seat every like episode, like what is gonna happen.
Yeah, it's been a slow burn for me because I was the same way. I wasn't all in on the cast at the very beginning, and even just ending episode 12, I'm like, I've come around on a lot of people. Like I'm like, you know what, you can't even knock this person for how, they've been able to outplay this other person. And then just the fact that they have sprinkled in those like elements of like personal conversations with one another. I'm like, okay, now that's the part of the Circle I really do enjoy. So yeah, been happy about that.
And I felt it a little more, I don't know. On the one hand, I'm like, oh, it's more natural. There's that famous TikTok from last season, I remember, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm so happy that you like the cake I baked, because my grandmother died in a baking accident. Like, typing in the sob story like icing on your dead grandmother's cake. But it seemed like it's more prevalent. I'm thinking specifically about that really fantastic conversation between James and Matthew, where it's just like you said, Aysha, really bringing in these personal elements. I love James. James is my favorite person on the show, but I really liked how we deepened him this week. We gave him some gameplay. We gave him some personal stuff. I say that while also bringing up that in the last episode, there's literally a question of like, hey, what would you do with the money? Give me all the reasons why, you feel like you're in the state that needs $100,000 right now. So it is a little bit of pouring it on, a little bit of that reality TV aspect. Let me go a bit big brain here, because again, I think we're all in agreement that it did not start off. It had a slower start to it. Like, do you think when they're planning out which people to bring in, was that purposeful on their part? Are they looking at Sophia? Are they looking at Rachel? Are they looking at James? Are they looking at Jackie? And they're like, all right, we can roll them throughout, and let's maybe throw out like an Ava, for instance. We know she's not exactly going to pop. So if, we put her in at the beginning, it's fine.
I wish I could say I had faith in them that was the plan all along, but I feel like they loved Ava. I feel like they were like, yes, Ava. Oh, she's gone first. What a mistake. Get her back in there,
right?
And that's why like those first 4 episodes, I felt like they just, because I don't think they needed to focus that much on Ava. I think they could have been focusing elsewhere, but they didn't. So I don't know. I don't know about that for me.
And I think it's more like we'll put the people in there, and then depending on who we like, we'll just, give a few extra chats here. Let this person talk to this person, keep these people from talking to each other, because I really want us to talk about like Isabella and Kay literally not having a chat until they've been there for like a week and a half, so I think that's more what it is. It's getting the people in there and then kind of dividing the house in a way by, letting people run wild with their assumptions before letting them actually talk to the person they've been building up in their head,
That's a good point, because I know that, again, it's different in every season. I know I had a conversation with Calvin. I got to do an exit interview with him where he said he got an hour of chat every 24 hours. that is not a lot. And so when you have like the Kay and Isabella stuff, or even like when James and Nick are talking in this like secret influencer chat, right? And Nick's like, Isabella's great when you get to know her. I'm like, yeah, they've never had a conversation outside of these doofy little games that they do. And that is, I don't know, it's wildly restrictive. I guess I can understand from like a content funnel perspective why you would want to control that, but it just seems, I don't know, there's got to be a happy medium.
Yeah, it's still my least favorite part about the Circle is just how controlled it is, and how little we are told about it. Like, you know, the really fascinating part for me about seeing two groups, two alliances. First, it's 4v4, then it's 3v3. Like going at it with the ratings is thinking about mathematically what is the best call to make here if you are one of these alliances. How do you get two of your people up there? And if you can't get two of your people, which person are you going to try to get up there? Should you put all of your eggs in one basket, or should you try to get spread it out as evenly as possible? And like those kinds of tactics are nowhere in the show, and I'm pretty sure nowhere in the game either, because I would imagine if it was, we probably would see some of it, but I think you're not really supposed to talk about your ratings. I think you're not really supposed to discuss like, okay, we're all gonna plan to put Nick first, and so that feels blocked, but they don't like tell us that it's blocked. And so like from a viewer perspective, it's like, why aren't they coordinating? Why hasn't Jackie talked to Kay and James for days after making an alliance with them? What is going on with these people? And you're just kind of left in the dark about it all.
Yeah, I literally was wondering why aren't they just agreeing? We know there are two sides. Just agree to put Nick last. Like, we know the writing is on the wall. There's no secrets about, I don't know who's working with who. It's very clear. So I'm like, just pull a survivor, break the fourth wall this season, show us the intern in the back typing the messages as they say it. I think that'd be really cool.
Go ahead, sorry, I just wanted to say, and that's why the band has been a little bit more successful, because even though they didn't have to say it, not only did they form first, but they've all been consistently putting Nick one. So that's why he's been buoyed by those ones, while the other side has not been consistently putting him last. He's actually made bonds with the other side that make sure that he stays at the number one. And that's why when we finally got in this batch of episodes, the other side being like, oh, guys, there's people against us. I was like, oh, thank you. Hallelujah. You finally realized it.
I
and it wasn't too late. And I appreciate it wasn't too late.
To go back to that Big Brother 6 comparison, though, like, I mean, we got a little bit of like the Howie situation, did we not? Here with like the, Nick sits down with James and is like, all right, and this is happens twice. They're like, all right, here we go. 2 battering rams, which I'm so happy they did. I know people were understandably pissed in episode 8 when they're like, okay, we have this standstill and we're doing a double blocking. What the hell? I'm sure we'll talk about what would have happened had that not happened. Now we finally get that 2 battering ram sense, and Nick is able to negotiate twice for James to sacrifice his closest ally, not his closest allies. I think that was the point, was that James is just like, listen, I'll just move forward with Kay. As long as it's not Kay, I'm totally fine. But it was really fun to watch because, again, it's this aspect of, even though there are 2 sides, I would say the 3 involved right now are Nick, Kay, and James, who, like, specifically Nick and James have relationships going with people on the other side, which is why they keep finding themselves in the top, that it's not as staunch as, let's keep firing across at each other. You have these 2 guys that at least have enough relationships with the other side that they're going to be perennially ranked a little bit higher compared to their allies. And so now they sort of end up serving as the 2 representatives, as opposed to someone like Kay, who, due to all the circumstances perhaps outside of her control, she just can't talk with most of the band.
Yeah, I feel like that is the major headline of this batch of episodes, is that we had these 2 sides going at each other twice in a row. We had Nick and James as influencers battling it out, and twice Nick seems to be able to convince James to sacrifice from his side. James even says, and I thought for sure when James went up the first time, I was like, okay, I think that Nick could have convinced, Daniel to get rid of, somebody on Daniel's side, probably James at that point. But I don't think James is going to back down here. And then he does. Then the second time I was like, surely James doesn't back down a second time in a row. And then he does. And it's very interesting to me because I don't know that it's entirely the obviously bad decision that it appears to be on the surface for James because of how the finale works, right? So that's something I'd love to talk about here. Aysha, what were your thoughts on this back and forth?
Yeah, like I haven't been a major Nick fan throughout the season, but I can't even be mad at Nick because it's like he straight up outplayed James. Like going into, if you would have told me they're going to be influencers back to back, okay, naturally I would think, okay, one might go from the other one side, and then James has to be able to convince Nick to sacrifice someone from his side. I never would have imagined that Nick would get his way both times, which just speaks to how Nick is able to be convincing, because the problem was James was not able to have any counterpoints. So that was his problem in the first blocking. So I can't say anything for Daniel. So I can't really even, I can't say anything. Right. And then the second time with Jackie, I'm like, James, make up a lie. Say that Isabella has, things going on with everyone, with me. Try to play like you're someone else, because I knew that James knew that it was Nick, but I wasn't 100% certain that Nick was 100% sold that it was James as player A.
Right.
So I'm like, why aren't you just pulling stuff out of thin air to do everything you can to keep Jackie? Because I think that James has just completely messed himself up due to how the finale works.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, that was the most frustrating thing the first time. I think the first time was the most frustrating time for me personally, because we have never, correct me if I'm wrong, Taran, because I know you've seen most of the other iterations. We've never seen what happens when the influencers have not come to a decision, from what I remember.
Yeah, I think I feel like I remember at some point it was made clear that, like, if they don't agree, then they are going to be in danger. I think that was specific to a twist, but I imagine it would be true for any of these scenarios.
Right. Because my thought process here was, we don't know what the mechanics are if you don't come to the decision. So James should have at least pushed it to what happens if we don't come to a decision, so that they could get the legit rules on that.
I mean, he might have, to be fair.
When they didn't show us, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not gonna, if it doesn't happen, they're not going to show it to us.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, it's like for a while when Survivor didn't reveal what the tiebreaker was, right, in a final tribal council until it actually happened.
Yeah, like when James goes to see Jackie, I think one of the first things he says is like, "We were up there for so long."
Yeah.
Like I can only imagine how long that conversation was.
Okay, so because my thought process is, say we don't know what the tiebreaker is, but I did feel that James would have probably had the upper hand depending on what the tiebreaker scenario was. Because my thoughts would be, okay, if you can't make the decision, maybe out of left field, the number one influencer gets to break the tie. That would have been James.
Yeah.
The other thing I could have thought of was, if y'all can't come to a decision, then the lowest rated player goes home. That would have been Isabella. So if those were any of the two cases, James would have had the upper hand depending on what the tiebreaker was. And those are just two of the things that came to my mind. So I just really was like, I want to know what happens if you go up there and you say, I'm not budging, and the other person says, I'm not budging. And I'm like, well, we gonna sit here. So producers, like, come on, because that would have been me. I'd have been like, you're not getting rid of any of my people. All right. So unless you back down, we just gonna be up here for 4 hours. And I really wanted to see that. And I feel like we didn't get to see it. So that's why I'm just left. It just makes James look like he punked out twice, So
well, that being said, though, I can sort of understand the logic, though. I'm with Taran here that, like, there is method to the madness. Specifically with the Daniel blocking. I know that you said it was frustrating, Mari, but James, I don't think goes through with it until that last minute deal goes through. And that was like a fist pumping reality TV moment for me, for them to be like, all right, we're making a deal. Like, this is backroom shady dealing straight out of politics. This is awesome.
But how do you trust that?
I mean, I think that James had a pretty good sense about Nick at this point, that he's like, all right, I think that he's going to go through with this. And so if anything, I know that Kay and I are going to be safe. Maybe Jackie, there's a chance that Jackie ends up getting thrown to the wolves. But like at this point, if it's just about Kay and I know that we can take this deal. And who knows if Nick's going to become influencer again? Because remember, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, have we had, besides Kay, someone who was an influencer, repeat influencer this season at all? So like, look, and especially seeing what happened with Ashley and Isabella, like there was a good chance that things would have completely fallen apart after that. And like Nick wouldn't have been ranked as highly. And that part of it is also Nick's missed, which again was fantastic, with just a little seed dropped of, well, Daniel's lying to you. I think, to be candid, I think James was emotionally swayed when it came to the Jackie blocking because of his conversation with Ashley. I think had he not had that conversation, he would have gone through with blocking her, or would have been that deadlock that you're talking about, Mari. But I think it was one of these things of, because she is a member of the LGBTQ community, personally, I cannot go through with this. And so I think it was one of those things of just like going with your heart above your head, because Jackie was unflinchingly loyal to James. We knew that she would not necessarily be ranked highly. So like on paper, again, seems like a slam dunk, but I really just think from James' perspective, he's like, I just had this conversation. I'm coming in as myself. I'm playing as myself. I myself could not do that in real life, so I can't do it in the game either.
Yeah, for me, I think that that the first decision with Daniel, it actually made sense to me. At first, I was like, I can't believe he did that. But thinking about it, I was like, okay, hold on. Daniel, he doesn't have a great connection with. Daniel is only with James because it's convenient. Daniel is also the kind of player who definitely is going to rate strategically in the end. And that means that, James is not getting any loyalty points from Daniel. That's not going to happen. So if he's able to appease Nick here, and get this in with Nick, and get a promise from Nick that he's not coming for himself or Kay. It makes sense that Nick wouldn't do that, because why would he get rid of James or Kay when they've both been, like he has that connection to them. He's thinking, I have my people and I have them rating me in the end. That's great for me. And Jackie is a very easy person to send out after Daniel. So this kind of works out for James, especially if he is sort of thinking, I think Isabella is a catfish, and I think that Ashley is a strategic player. I think that one or both of them might rate strategically in the finals, and that means that somebody like me may benefit from them as opposed to Nick, especially if I pump up Nick in the next rating so that I give Nick influencer. He protects me and Kay. They all see Nick as the biggest threat going into the finals. And maybe I benefit from all of this. I thought all of that kind of made sense until the next one. I didn't think the Jackie one made as much sense to me. And that's because Jackie, to me, was the kind of player, and I could have read her wrong. We didn't see her for very long. She was the kind of player to me that would have put James number one in the final regardless. That she had the connection. I mean, because let me tell you, we'll talk about Jackie, but the fact that she chose a side and then that side caved in on itself and she went back to that side instead of going over to the band was pretty telling about who she is as a player, right? And so I feel like Jackie could have been very valuable to James. And I don't know for sure that Isabella and Ashley will rate strategically. I think Isabella may be a little more likely to, but even then, I think she feels bad about leading Nick on, and so she's probably not going to rate him too low, even if she does rate strategically. And so I feel like this Jackie thing, if James doesn't win, I feel like it's probably this Jackie move that costs him that win. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's my concern, is because at this point, he would only for sure have one person rating him at least number one. I can't see Kay saying, well, let me rate James lower because other people are going to rate him higher. She might just want to let me just go ahead and push him to the top. But then it's like, you have no idea what Ashley and Isabella and Nick are going to do, because they could be looking out for each other in terms of, I may not rate Nick number one. I may just do number three, and I'll just put Kay and James at the bottom just to make sure that we get the band is at the top. So it was
Right.
risky. I wish we would have seen the end of that conversation because we kind of got just the build up, but we didn't get to see why James caved.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Again, I feel like we're not seeing what I want to see. I want to see James explain why he got rid of Daniel, and I want to see him explain, in the end. I mean, he says to Jackie in when he goes to meet her, he says what it came down to is that the argument was good, that that you didn't have as much of a chance to bond with player B, and it's possible that is ultimately what did it. We usually do see that, like, in these scenarios, the person with the better argument tends to win. For whatever reason, the person with the worst argument tends to back down. And Nick did have the better argument both times. He has a stronger connection to Isabella and Ashley than James did with Daniel or Jackie. And so, I think that definitely played a big part in why I think James didn't feel like he had the ground to stand on. But James is also a pretty strategic player, and it's hard to imagine that there wasn't some kind of strategy that went into the decision as well.
Yeah. This is interesting. These final ratings are going to be, I can't wait to see them, because I think the problem that I think it might be predictable, that we might just, the most predictable thing would be a Nick win, is these two sides have been at each other for so long, and they form such solid bonds that even if they want to rate strategically, like Aysha said, it might be not as strategic, because they still might be like, I want to rate strategically and I want to win, but I also would rather one of my people win, as opposed to the other people that I've been villainizing for the past 3 weeks, So that's why.
I'll rate Nick second instead of first.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know, because I think that I definitely think James and Kay are going to rate each other highly. I think it's going to be more emotionally based, because, and this is one of the things that, like, it's really tough. Like, I'm not team band, I'm not team La Resistance or whatever the hell they call themselves. But I found myself more. I found myself more team band this week. Just because, and this is one of my reality TV pet peeves, and maybe it was built on a little thick because they were trying to get Jackie onto their side, but the whole thing of, like, we are genuine, we're honorable, we're loyal. It's like, that's fine. And again, they are, ironically enough, the group of real people versus the group of catfish. But at the same time, and Nick's going to verbalize this when he's talking about Isabella, like, I don't give a shit what her picture is. I feel a genuine connection. And that's all that matters. So, like, I personally, and again, I know this is a drum that has beaten so many times that Nick himself is done with it. But, like, this idea of genuine and honesty and loyalty being so key in the circle, it isn't. Like, I don't give a crap about a catfish. I know there's the assumption of, oh, well, if they're lying about this, well, what else are they going to be lying about? It doesn't matter to me. Like, all that matters is the person behind the picture. That's the entire lesson of this freaking show, in my opinion. So that was something that just, like, kind of irked me, to be completely honest. And why I wasn't totally on that team this week was just because of this idea of, well, you have to join us because we're the good people, in a manner of speaking.
I mean, one of the things I've liked about this week in particular, personally, is that I feel like this show and this, kind of game where you are pitted against each other, and the producers are preventing you from talking to each other to intentionally create a divide. It is meant to cause this kind of, like, they are the other, they are the bad people, we are the good ones. And I think what we saw this week is that people from both sides were starting to recognize on occasion, like, what am I doing? What am I? I don't hate Kay. Why have I been hating on Kay this whole time? And then they'd reach out to Kay, and Kay would be, like, very open, like, you know what? They'd reach out to me, and you know what? I'm not going to reject this either. Like, what am I doing? Like, they're not the bad guy. Like, this seems genuine to me. And it felt like both sides are able to recognize the humanity in the other, even though they're, like, falling victim to this pressure to just, like, they are the other. Well, but are they? And even, like, Isabella was the first one to really recognize, because I think she was probably the most guilty of it. First, like, recognize, like, maybe I was wrong about this. But then you can still see, like, afterwards, she's still struggling with it. Like, she's still like, no, get out of here. Oh, but wait, man, who am I kidding? I'm Sophie. And so I've enjoyed that aspect of it in this batch of episodes, because it's just really interesting to me watching. I imagine, pretty good people, like, just falling into this trap of like, no, it's my people are the good ones. They're the enemy. But being able to recognize it, I thought that was kind of cool.
Exactly. And like you guys have pointed out on the last few weeks, like, Sophie has irritated the mess out of me because of her dislike towards Kay, because it literally just out of her mouth, Kay, it's Kay's this, it's Kay's the one who's doing this. And I'm just like, yo, like, let it go. And for me, I've been watching the whole show, and I'm really, like, did I not pay attention to, like, the early episodes? Right. I really don't understand what Kay did to seem as strategic as they made her out to be, especially since we can see Kay's responses. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kay's like, we'll talk about her responses, and then she would say something, and then they'd be like, oh, that's just so strategic. And it'd be so innocent, like, and not just
like, oh, Jackie, let's play volleyball. It's like, my God, the Machiavellian streak in her.
Yes. And I'm just, like, so confused. Like, where did this narrative come from? I mean, I saw when Nick literally got the band together just to go after her, but it's just so weird. And it was so unfortunate because, like you guys pointed out earlier, it was like there was a certain point where she could have done absolutely nothing in their eyes for them to change, like, what their perception of her was. And I don't know what spurned Isabella to have that, Sophia, whatever, to have that, to be like, oh, maybe I should just try and actually talk to her moment. But before that, it was just like, Kay was their boogeyman. And I'm just like, meanwhile, that girl is sitting in her apartment just, like, kicking it up. It was so
friendliest person I've ever seen in my life.
She's the candy man. You say her name 5 times. And, like,
with her
she'll appear to block you.
One of my favorite parts of all 4 episodes was Ashley going A B C D E F G.
Also, like, breaking news are happening now. Alert. I got a message from what I'll refer to as someone legit, who said the little birdie told me that the convo between Nick and James that eliminated Jackie lasted 6 hours.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah. You're like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Jackie can go.
If you're spending a quarter of a day debating this, you're just like, okay, let's throw it in the towel. I just want to go home.
But see, that's like, how do you not show that? That's amazing.
How at least have a montage. Like
6 hours later.
Like hour 1.
Like 2 hours later, 4 hours later, like, they're still going. Like, I want to see them, like, just miserable at the screen. Like, that sounds incredible. I can't believe we didn't get to see it.
Oh my gosh. And then can you imagine being those players waiting 6 hours? At that point, I'd be like, okay, maybe somebody else got blocked.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense now, right? How incredibly understanding Jackie was, right? Like, when he came in, like, I'm so sorry I tried so hard. She was like, let me tell you, I know, it's been 6 hours.
That's the length of an endurance challenge on one of these other shows. Right?
It's the length of 3 endurance challenges nowadays.
Right,
yeah.
almost
it's 6. Of the Heroes versus Villain podcast.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually they were talking Heroes versus Villains the whole time. That's why they didn't show any of it. They were just too busy.
That's the subtitle for this season, essentially, as Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, I think with Kay, the focus has been on her so much because of that initial influencer, and because they've been playing so strategically. They're like, oh, there's something about Kay that everyone loves her so much right away, and because she was by herself, right? That very first influencer was one influencer.
Yeah. And it wasn't like there was bad blood, right? Of like, oh my God, you went after, Ava and Chanel. But I do think there's this idea, especially because Isabella and was one of the later, and Rachel were two of the later players.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
true.
we see who it is. There's that je ne sais K, I suppose, right? The idea of like she's so magnetic. There's something about her that honestly, again, to use another BB6 term, like there's a little bit of jealousy going on, in my opinion. I think that's something that Isabella kind of vocalizes too, right? Of like, we were so jealous of the image of her that like it caused us to turn on her.
I think back-to-back influencer as the first two influencers were Kay and essentially Kay. And so that right away was like, okay, Kay is the one to beat right now. It like really set her up, and that's the first impression. And then for a player like Isabella, who comes in, immediately bonds with Nick, and then Nick is always coming back to Isabella like, I don't know, I talked to Kay and she seems really cool. Like, no, what do you mean? Like, how is Kay doing this? Like I feel like that really, amplified it. And Kay becomes this like big looming figure, and meanwhile she's sitting in her apartment like, I don't know, these people seem really nice.
It's like every time, because even with why she's gonna win the money, she's gonna start a women's beach volleyball team, and then they instantly feel guilty that she gives an authentic answer. And then even her conversation with Nick, she's like, I think that was a really good conversation. And then you have Nick, I guess we're just never going to be on the same page. We're always meant to just go against each other. I was like, what is happening? You're reading what you want to read, which I guess is, the power of social media.
I did like the tentative relationship between Nick and Kay has been so interesting to me throughout the season, because I think that Nick genuinely wants to work with Kay, especially because of his connection to Calvin. When Calvin gives him like the power, he's like, I gotta really make an effort here. But he really just doesn't know that he can trust her. And so like, I feel like they go back and forth about like whether they trust the other one. And I did in that moment feel like, I can understand why he would have been like, she suspects I'm Vince. And she showed me that she suspects I'm Vince. She must not trust me. But like the problem was that she did suspect he's when she just didn't care. But obviously she wasn't able to convey that. And like that's how easy it is for like, especially through text, like your message to not be conveyed.
It's all about reading tone, right? It's like, I wonder how sarcastic they were, meaning that the K Nick stuff is so much fun. It is such a great yin yang dynamic again of like, they're frenemies, but one person like doesn't think they're enemies at all. It's like, well, you don't like me and I don't like you, and Kay's like, but I like you. When did you say that I don't like you?
And I think part of it too, like I wonder how much of it is like Kay has such a friendly demeanor. I mean, just like from her voice, from like her facial expressions, like every nonverbal and even verbal piece of communication that you would get from Kay in person is like, just, you would never think that she is anything but like the friendliest person. But you strip that away and you only have the text. I feel like I wonder how much that plays into, not being able to read exactly who Kay is. And I do feel like they eventually start to, like one by one, they all eventually start to seem to get it. Isabella, Ashley, they all go to Kay. You know what? I just completely read her wrong. And I just feel so bad that I read her wrong. And
she was rated third this last time around when they showed the ratings. Like that's a huge bounce back, considering that she went from first and then top 2, and then she like cratered. Right, because everyone was like FK. So like again, it's showing that I think if you're talking about these staunch two sides, the fact that there are some people making personal connections, and maybe that's also a factor of the season as well, that like people are starting to realize, we're getting near the pointy end of the game. I'm investing more of my heart into this, and ironically enough, now I'm realizing maybe it is more than just a game, that there actually are people behind this. Let me make connections. It's an odd parabola, the circle. In my opinion. It starts like super personal because you don't know anybody, then it could get like really gamey, let's get rid of the biggest threats, and then it ends up being really personal at the end for some people of I just really love these people, like at the end of the day I'm just gonna vote with my heart. It's a really odd phenomenon, but I've seen so many people vote that way.
And this was also why I kind of brought up the Circle Brazil, because the same kind of thing happened there. Like one of the first influencer, Marina, she was the first influencer. She was then tanked for the most of the game and then ended up winning. And wow. I was rooting for her. And so like I could definitely see a world where that happens, but for Kay, but it really just comes down to the votes and how they're gonna vote strategically. But I'm thinking we're gonna get a Nick win here, to be quite honest. I mean, because I don't think Isabella and Ashley are willing to tank him enough. Because it's up to them. They're the three. It's 3 versus 2 basically. The two, James and Kay, have no other choice but to kind of put each other. They have no incentive, because it's not. It's just Kay and then the other 3, James and the other 3. So and you guys have been in below, so you might as well put them first, and then it's whatever the amalgamation of the other 3 that they put. And then it just comes down to the 3. Does that make sense? That was very confusing. I'm sorry.
Let's try. Let's save the winner speculation until the end. Let's first get into some of our blocked players here.
Hashtag justice for Roxana.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Roxana was one of the rare players from week 1 that I sympathized with, and like I actually was like, okay, I like you. And so it's tough. I think it was a good move on Nick's part, though. Because I think at this moment,
it made sense for him.
Flip a coin as to whether or not he feels like Kay is with him. At this point, he felt that Kay was with him. And like you said, about the whole La Resistance alliance, I think something that was really unique about it compared to the band was like Nick handpicking everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's no wonder that they stuck together. The other group was, okay, Kay is close with James. Kay is close with Roxana. Roxana is close with Daniel. Right,
yeah.
Like a chain of players. And so if you clip one of those key links on paper, it ends up not being the case. But I could easily see a scenario where, Roxana gets cut and Daniel's more of a free agent now. And he's like, I don't really know Kane James that well, so I don't really want to work with them necessarily. It ends up not necessarily happening in that case. But I think she was such a key conduit and someone who didn't necessarily either work with Nick or have communications with him that I think, as sad as it was, she was the person to cut on that side.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. And when we were speculating who might go, it just made so much sense that Nick would do that. He did have, obviously he couldn't do Daniel, but even if he could, I think like he felt like he had some kind of relationship with him at that point. And he couldn't do, James. And so is not going to do Kay. It had to be Roxana at that point.
Yeah.
And then of course, Jackson on the other side. I don't know that Daniel made the right call here. Actually, it's the one that made the most sense. They all suspected that Jackson was a catfish. But for all the reasons, it was the right move for Nick to cut Roxana about, talking about like being the link between some other people. I feel like Jackson was potentially the wrong call for exactly that reason. He was not the link between anybody.
Right.
Jackson was kind of like the 4th in that group. There was a tight 3, and then we love Jackson. And so by cutting Jackson off, you're kind of just like shaving off the extra bits there, and leaving the core. Whereas, if he's able to, cut out Isabella or something along those lines,
right.
I don't think it would have made a huge difference. But I don't think they'd be as locked in as they were with these 3. But I loved the juxtaposition of Jackson, aka the woman that played Jackson.
A minute, Taran, you were about to say Jackson, aka Mickey. I saw the syllables for it. Big brother person.
And Roxana and their meetings, right? Where Jackson is in there with Nick with like the flirtiest energy I think I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Meetings.
I was like, just make out.
Yeah, Roxana's over there with Daniel, and they're having like this heartfelt, like, oh my god.
I was like crying during their meeting.
Yeah.
And going back to Nick, and I was like, come on.
Yeah, do you think, how close were we getting to like a Miranda and Joey season 1?
Oh, I think if you had given them like 15 more minutes, it could have happened.
Yeah, why don't we get 6 hours on them?
I don't think we've had a scenario before where somebody gets like reverse catfished. like right, like where like usually Nick would be talking to I should really figure out her name.
She did.
Rachel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually, Nick would be
Rachel.
talking with Rachel in the circle, and then Jackson would show up, and you're like, but it was the complete opposite, and you could see it in Nick's face. He was like, and he kept saying like, should have come in as Rachel, because he was like, man, Isabella, who?
Yeah, exactly. And if at that point, if he wasn't like, connected to Isabella, I know he would have gone for it. But then he was like, I got to play it cool.
And that's a little bit of week one Nick poking through, right? Like my take is that like I actually have really enjoyed Nick the past couple of weeks. I think he's this example of like give him long enough, give him enough to develop his game skills, and he becomes an incredibly compelling character. Whereas week one he comes in, right, he's like, where are the women? Exactly. And so I'm happy that he grew into that, but it's a little bit of a reversion when she steps in. And so unlike Nick's words, I'm grateful that she didn't step in as Jackson, because if that was their interaction within the 15 minutes they were together, I'm not going to stretch across like 9 episodes. I do not love that personally.
Yeah, and I mean, she was like, this Nick, man, he's got big Nick energy. I don't know what it is, but
I never want to hear that again.
Isabella, Sophia loves him. Ashley, I never know that. Matthew, I think his name is, loves him. Jackson and Rachel love him. Even when Jackie came in, she was like, he seems like a cool guy. James liked him. Kay likes him. Like everybody likes this guy. He has a text charisma that is undeniable.
It even comes through the screen, because I was talking to one of my guy friends and he's like, do you watch The Circle? I was like, yeah, I watch The Circle. He's like, what do you think about Nick? He's awesome, right? It's like that big Nick energy, apparently.
Yes. Should we go with big Nick energy? Should we call it like magnetism? Is that a better way to go instead of like away from the euphemistic stuff?
You guys, I am done with y'all putting Nick's names in all of these words. Kind of like when Kay was calling him ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
I was like, I am done. Like, why? And why is it so easy to just put it in everything?
I mean, listen, you take a certain word, one letter's different between them, right? So like it's really easy to do.
I mean, I have to ask the question: is Nick one of the most effective circle players we've ever seen? Because I mean, this guy has gotten stuff done.
Unquestionably.
Yeah. You know what it is? I think.
Go ahead, Aysha.
Yeah, no, I just think he's able to. He probably texts so much in the real world. He is really able to. Some people you can read their text and you hear them. That's Nick. Like there's no like. How do I read this? Does he mean that? Like he's able to put himself into words, and the only way you could do that is through practice. So I'm convinced he's a big texter. He has to be.
I also wonder how much the Vince stuff, honestly, like helped his game in a manner of speaking. Because I would also imagine like the Vince stuff was when I personally really started to like Nick. Because like I think from a character perspective, he's letting go a little bit more. He's putting on the cape. But I also wonder if becoming a master of a different character almost like allowed him to focus on honing in the Nick character a little bit more. But Taran, I have to agree. I think he is definitively one of the best players we've seen in these 3 US seasons. And I don't know how that's going to bear out in the end, but I just cannot believe not only the fact of what he was able to get done this past week, but the fact that he also still finished in the top twice. That despite someone like, Daniel and even Kay going for him, like he was able to negotiate his way into getting into the top spot once again for the second time in a row.
Yeah.
But again, Kay wasn't really going for him though. Like for real. I don't think.
What do you mean going for him?
Like, I mean, she did not start a whole group to target him first and foremost, but also like the biggest thing that you could say that she did to make a move against him was initially trying to get into James's good graces. You know what I'm saying? And once her, you know what I'm saying?
I don't think she was trying to block Nick. I think that she
exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. She was never like legit throwing all her eggs trying to get him out. So that's why I'm just kind of like, he did a great job. I'm not saying he didn't do a great job, but he definitely didn't have half the house coming for him like Kay that Kay did, you know.
Right.
But yeah, he's so great with when he's talking with, even when he's just talking with Isabella and she's like doing like at the flirting. His flirting was never anything that was like made me think it was crazy. Like I feel like we in other iterations we've seen like stuff where I was like, oh, I need to take a shower.
Yeah.
It wasn't Adam from season 1, right?
Yes,
God, yeah.
yes, there
What's
it is.
the most adventurous thing you've done?
Yes. So like,
wait,
Nick
what was
so
it? The
good.
safari?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Ew, I don't even want to remember Adam. That's so nasty. He's just smooth. He's smooth. That's what it is. Nick is smooth.
Yeah.
And it really feels like anytime that anybody has anytime like somebody like when Jackie chooses the other group over Nick, or when like Kay feels doubt about Nick, or when somebody feels threatened by Nick, it's like anytime he talks to them, he wins them back over. Like it's when he's not able to talk to them that they maybe start to doubt. But like it's pretty rare in this game, in this show, that I see somebody and I'm like, oh, if he talks to that person, then he's probably going to be fine. He always tends to say like the right thing. And he knows how to like put things like, that does sound genuine. That does sound great. And it tends to work out. He has that ability.
And I think it's, I think he's going to be, look, I don't want to be like, Nick is the best player in Circle history, but I think that he's going to be a little bit of a game changer. Like, I'm really intrigued to see what this informs for season 4, because I think what Nick did that was so different than everyone that came before him is he specifically cobbled people together and said, we are an alliance. Let's go back to Survivor Borneo. What happens with those Toggies is very different from like we all like the Pagongs, like we all like each other, so let's vote together. This was very significant. We are all going to work with each other. We're all going to vote together. I hadn't seen that before in the Circle US, like you would have been talking about. There's loose agreements of like, I like this person, I'm going to protect this person. But that was really the first time that I had seen someone basically use the A word, to use like Big Brother Canada parlance in this season. And I wonder moving forward, especially if Netflix feels like this is the right direction for the show to go in, are we going to see like final 2 deals made? Are we going to see people trying to bring people into a very ironclad deal?
Yeah, and it was very proactive as well, right? Like usually, it was the Wolf Pack was the original thing, right? The Wolf Pack was the alliance, and a lot of people would be like, here's my crew. It's the Wolf Pack. But Nick very proactively was like, I'm going to make a separate group as well that I pick, and I'm going to overlap them, and I'm going to have both, and we'll see where things play out. And that those options that gave him really allowed him to like be like, hey, band, it's always been us, eh?
Right.
And I've been over here really trying to think if we've seen anybody who's been more strategic as a real person in the Circle, because I feel like that was the key there, because he is a real person. So he went in as himself. He was able to put himself out there, be relaxed, know who he is, be able to share and bond, but also be strategic from the jump, in a sense, and effectively, like Taran said, leverage all of his relationships into, eventually what became the band. Because as I'm trying, especially if we're just looking at Circle US stuff, a lot of we've complained, in the previous seasons, they never got really strategic until we got closer to the end or in the middle, and then or sometimes it was just one person who was strategic. Like Joey literally won the first season of the Circle because he basically was the only person who voted strategically. You know what I'm saying? And so not only is Nick himself voted and has been playing strategically, he also definitely not lucked up because he did it, but he found the 2 catfish who are just as strategic as he is and leveraged all of it for them to control the game.
Yeah. And even though it started as like I can't pitch like, let's block K with the wolf pack, so I need to create the band.
Yeah.
Even though that was like his reasoning for getting the band together, it really paid off because that was 4 people. Then, okay, losing Jackson, that's okay. He still had a strong 3 with Isabella and Ashley, so he really set himself up really well.
Mhm.
So let me ask the question that was sort of floated out before. So let's say the audience gets what they want at the end of episode 8. They have to agree on one person blocking, add another 6 hours to the clock. So you mentioned it before, Taran. So you think that Nick is able to mist Daniel into getting rid of, I mean, I don't know if he'd be able to convince him to get rid of Roxana, but like,
No.
Right.
probably
James, I think would have been James, yeah. Because I don't think Daniel had even really talked with James at that point, right? They really
Yeah, the La Revolution. Now that I actually have been corrected on this, I put that formed after the Roxana blocking.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
They had talked about working together as a 4 and they knew that they
Right.
needed to be in sync, but I don't think he had ever actually really had like a conversation with James.
And was he
Yeah.
eligible to be blocked at that blocking?
James was, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Or at least I believe so. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, because I think whoever left before Roxana, that was the one. That was the
That was
blocking that
Calvin,
James.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, wait. No, because James came.
James
No, James came
in
before Calvin
Before he
left.
he came in like episode 6.
Because when Calvin left, he was like, perfect. Now I can be in with Kay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yep. There it is. Okay. Yeah. Then it probably would have been James if they agreed on one person.
You see what happens, Netflix, when you air 4 episodes a week? We all get confused about who blocks when everything happens. It's all one big blob in all of our brains.
Well, so yeah, I think that's, or at least that's what I would have speculated. You never really know. I just like considering that that Nick went toe to toe with James for 6 hours. I feel like James is a bit more like assertive than Daniel. So
yeah, and that's what that also ultimately comes down to when we get to the Daniel blocking decision. Is I really do feel like it was like the George and Elaine, right? Like friend of a friend thing, where I think James was fine with Daniel, but I think he always perceived Daniel as, right, this young kid who didn't necessarily know better, who was a bit emotional, who was acting a bit rash. I'm sure he was not necessarily a huge fan of the decision. I think he was fine with blocking Jackson, but I'm assuming he would rather get rid of Isabella. So it really was this idea of like trimming the fat, maybe in a manner of speaking, off of that alliance if given the choice to.
And also, I mean, he picked first, so that was another thing.
That was another thing. Yeah.
So they let who was at the top? Was Nick at the top of the ratings?
Nick was
he
at
number
the top,
1?
yeah.
Okay, so maybe he deserves to get his choice in second. But I was like, we all know if Nick would have blocked Roxana first, then Isabella would have been right there out the door.
Exactly.
But they get to pick, because I don't think it's ever been consistent, right, Taran? Because I remember you were on here complaining about somebody being first and they didn't get the strategic picking spot on a season ago. So again, production.
But see, I think that why is his name Daniel? So Daniel, I think he was thinking for sure Nick is gonna block K. So he's thinking, okay, who is like the K to Nick, which would be Jackson, like lower on the totem pole, but still on his side. And so I think that's why he was so stunned, because he had no idea that, Kay and Nick had come to this quote unquote agreement.
Yeah. Or James. He probably could have thought he was going to block James as well. Like we said.
Yeah. And I think Daniel was probably thinking along the lines of a lot. Like, I mean, it's also how Kay was, thinking in the first portion of the game. And I think it's kind of like the level 1 strategy of the circle, which is when you're in power, you make the move that is the most agreeable to everyone, which tends to be the person that you most suspect is a catfish. You make the least amount of waves. If you're right, then it's like, look, I did good. And so he might have been expecting that Nick would do the same thing, or maybe he didn't care what Nick did, just focused on what he was doing. But Nick goes for the gut shot. Nick goes straight for Roxana, and they're like, whoa! But then he's influencer again, which I think proves that like these players probably should be taking bigger shots when they have this power in the circle. You might not fall down as low as you might think. Often oftentimes they get power, they take a very safe shot, and then they fall down in the ratings anyway. So you might as well take the shot when you have it. I think is kind of the lesson here.
No, that's true. That's what happened with Savannah last season.
And that's also another reason I think why maybe there is some resentment from Sophia towards Kay, right? Is because remember, she and Ashley had that shot to take. They got rid of her. They got rid of Calvin instead of her. And I wonder if there's some like growing thing of like, I should have gotten rid of Kay. Why did I not?
Well, I think she said it. Yeah.
I kept her. I had the power in my hands, and like again, unless you're Nick and James, you never know when you get that ability. Again, that's another thing is that these ratings can fluctuate so much that it's like. If you get the gun in your hand, you better fire a kill shot or else you're just wasting any bullets.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, I liked Daniel. I thought Daniel was funny.
I did too. I thought he was
I did too, Mark. When he said, and I don't have the exact quote, but he said something. I think it was after the blocking when Nick was apologizing for the Roxana thing. He was like, I'm not buying what he's selling. And even if I did, I want to return it. I just cracked up. He's just so funny. I really enjoyed him. I think my biggest issue with Daniel as a character on the show is that the Daniel that we saw did not seem to be conveyed in his interactions to the other players. He was very much like played down. They all looked at him like, this like innocent little kid who's a virgin and like he's shy. But like we knew a completely different Daniel, and I wish Daniel was the one that was that they knew.
And that was somebody from last season that kept happening too. He kept being at the bottom, and they were like, we just can't string him along anymore. Same type of archetype. I can't remember. It was somebody.
Not Ripper, was it?
No.
Are you thinking of Vithin in
yes,
UK?
Vithin. Yeah, UK. Yes, there it is. It was Vithin in UK. That's what it was. My bad. Yes, Vithin. Yeah, because there are a lot of people who liked him, but he just was not giving enough to the circle, and he was at the bottom so much to the point where they're like, even his closest allies are like, we can't keep dragging you along here. So, and that's kind of unfortunately, a similar situation, I think, to Daniel, because he just didn't have that backing when he really truly needed it. But I also thought that, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, I thought Kay was hilarious when she was like, oh, I'm definitely going home.
Oh, I love it. And then it was like, she's like, oh, I'm definitely going
home. She's like, oh, I'm definitely going home.
She's great. She's so great. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority here. I was not a fan of Daniel. Maybe because he reminded me, to be candid, a little too much of like myself at that age, of like bright, starry-eyed, like performative theater kid who's 20 years old, right? Like I would have brought some very similar energy, and much like I wouldn't want to see a 20-year-old version of myself play the game, I probably would not want to see Daniel do it. I think he was fine for what he brought. I think to Taran's point, the best part of Daniel was Daniel reacts. Of just like him having reactions to everything. Honestly, I liked him the most after his blocking, when we'll talk about like his decision to visit Sophia and just like info dump everything. But to me, I think it was a little too much. Like he was both outplayed, but also like maybe had his heart too much in the game. Like him talking about, oh, we're the outcasts, so we have to join together, but also saying like, oh, it's the nerds are controlling everything. Again, it's very Big Brother 6, right? The nerd herd, it's controlling everything. So maybe I was just getting tinges of that. Daniel just never really struck with me personally.
Well, we did have Jackie come and join as our really just cannon fodder spot here. This happens every single time, and every single time they go out in the same spot. She seemed fine. I didn't get the greatest vibes of like her as a player. She really was just like, James is my guy, and I don't blame her. I like James a lot too. But the second James lets Daniel go, I really feel like it's time to jump ship on the James train. He may not be the guy that's going to be able to keep you safe here.
Right. That's what I thought was going to happen when they woke up the next day and Jackie's like, oh, I got to figure something out. I was like, their side is about to crumble. Wow, that sucks. But we they did in a sense, but we kind of got people actually what I felt like kind of led way to Isabella reaching out to Kay, and then Ashley like really reaching out to James and like being like solidified. I thought that actually made it seem like people were able to just relax for a second and actually get to know each other again. I kind of felt like it felt lighter, I guess, after what Daniel was blocked.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing, though, is that it was a lighter moment after some incredible drama, right? Where essentially they tossed a stake into the lion's den, where Jackie comes in, and I mean, if we're talking about producer, like, say what you want to about producer controlling things, but like, genius on their part to manipulate things in a way to have Jackie get invitations from both groups at once. Because like that is such an incredible choice. I mean, we knew what she was doing, right? Like when everyone's preaching to her, like, no, we're honest, loyal, genuine. She's like, I'm also honest, loyal, and genuine. Of course I'm going to go with you. But we've never had that before. Someone who got essentially like got put on hold with two different phone lines. You got to choose which one to pick up for. And Jackie like literally shuts the door in the band's face. And it was really tense to watch.
Yeah, see, that was interesting to me because it was good to watch in the moment, but afterwards I did feel like, okay, but now can she talk to the band? Because I would love for her to hear their pitch too, and then have to like make the decision. And then, but instead it kind of felt like, oh, because you turned down that call, that door is forever closed to you. And like she's picked a side, and that's just the way it is now. And I was like, but I would love to see them fight over her a little bit more. Like she just heard a ton of dirt on the band. What is the band gonna say in response? And like, can they talk her back over? And like, is she gonna rat the other people out? Like this could really lead to something. And then it kind of felt like, oh, okay, she's just not really gonna have any of those conversations.
Yeah, because until she left, we only saw her have a conversation with James and Kay, and that was it. I don't even think she had a conversation with Nick, but I don't think she talked to Isabella or Ashley at all.
Nope.
I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't know their names by the end of it, right? Because like they barely interacted. What did we think of her though as a person, right? Like I mean, I know Daniel decried the nerds that were in charge. Here we have the video game hostess with the mostest.
I liked her so much. I really did. Like we only got a little bit of her, but I really wish she had came in sooner. I wish she would have been an original or came in replacing either Isabella or Jackson. Actually Jackson. I wish she had come in replacing Jackson, because I thought she was just such a nice, vibrant person. And I just wanted to get to know more of her. I love the gamer chic of it all. Like she gave me everything. And I just am really sad that we didn't really get to even scratch the surface with her.
Yeah, and I kind of felt I didn't love the savage question game when it was like, are you really a gamer girl? Like I guarantee you that she has had to deal with that nonsense for her entire life.
You're a girl. Do you know how to hold a controller?
So that was annoying. And I think I probably got the most choked up watching her talk about her brother because there was so much raw emotion still there. James and his brother as well. But it's I feel like she could have been a more interesting character if she wasn't, unfortunately, just this cannon fodder.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you honestly, I think so far of the 3 seasons we've had, season 2 did it the best with people entering late, and it was by default because the person entering late was not a real person. That was the composite, right? Because I think between future challenge star Ed and his mom, and then this, like, it's just abundantly clear that when you were one of these like episode 8 to episode 10 arrivers, like, you might be able to squeak into the finale, but like that's the best you can hope for. And so honestly, like I'd fine if we did like every other episode someone comes in, just because I agree. I think that Jackie was a little limited in her characterization, but it was because she had 3 conversations and she tried the best that she could. But like the fact of the matter is things have been decided so much already that either she was going to squeak in due to this civil war, or people are going to be like, I don't know anything about you, so I'm gonna have to rate you low.
Yeah, I feel like I think what they should do is nobody comes in the last batch of episodes. I think it should be, in the second batch of episodes, like the final injection of players should be like a big one, like 3 players at once. And I guess maybe like the thing there is that I do think there's a method to their madness in the sense that they introduce players in such a way that it's kind of like take out an original, because the new players are immune. Now you can take out a new player. Now the new players have probably been in here long enough that you might not take out the other new player. So maybe you take out another original and there's a new player that's immune. And then now you can take out that new player. And so they kind of go back and forth in that way. But I would love to see something where, let's just throw Jackie in with James and and Vince or whoever else, right? Like, throw them in at the same time, and then let us get to know them and give them a real chance to win. It's fine if we have 9 players for a brief period of time for me, but whatever.
Yeah, I really liked her. She was a breath of fresh air, and even if she had come in originally, I think she really done really well, because it seemed like even though she was a gamer, she wasn't coming in to try to be overly strategic. So I felt like the fact that people were lacking that personal connection with a lot of people, they would have been like, okay, well, I think I can trust Jackie because at least I feel like we have a connection. So it just didn't help that she came in a couple days before the finale.
Can I suggest something? Because I'm a purveyor of the Love Island, another UK to American hybrid series, and they have something called Casa Amor, where at the halfway point they just bring in like a boatload full of new people, and sometimes they bring it's a nice way to inject some spice into the game. Can I suggest Catfish Amor, where maybe we get like 3 or 4 new people, drop them in there, see whatever the hell happens. It's especially a way to like spice things up. I say do it at once. And I'd rather have that than parse out 4 people throughout the game of just like drop them all in a batch. It's an entirely new group of variables to work with. Sometimes you might recruit them to your cause. Sometimes you use them and abuse them and lose them. But I think it could be a fun way to do it. And also from a new player perspective, like it worked with Jackie and James in that the way things were arranged, they got a lot more attention. But I feel like usually if you're a newer player, like it's pretty much, hey, you're interesting. Great. All right. Ratings come around and we're like, I don't really know you. All right. I'm going to get rid of you. Like, that's very much what I felt like Mitchell specifically, I think really felt like that last season.
Yeah, I do. I feel like they try very hard to make sure, because the format of the show, I can see, again, I can see sort of the method to their madness here where, if they're not careful and you have all the same players in at the same time for too long, then it could really start to get pagangi. The way that the ratings work and the way that the influencers work, like as soon as one group of people has a leg up and they just start putting themselves in as influencers and they take out everybody other than themselves, like the last thing they want is for like episode to episode to be like very predictable. We know exactly who's going to be leaving now coming forward. And I think that's part of why they introduce new people. Now it's like, oh, you thought that the revolution was going to be down in numbers, but now Jackie's here, and look, we're going to let Jackie talk more with them than and boom, just like that, it's not over yet, is it? So I think it is kind of just another way of them controlling the pacing of the game, which has its strengths and weaknesses, I think.
What if they did something like where, like Mike suggested, they introduce 4 new people, but have them compete to stay in the circle, like 2 of them stay in the circle, and then the other 2 would have to leave, and it be based off what the other players who were originally there. What it? I just thought about the triangle twist. Was that the UK season? But I'm just saying, like, something, I agree, it's just weird. I just don't like the last person coming in, because either they're taken out and they have no shot, or they win like Patty did, and then we're like, who are you? Like,
what if it was like what if we did like here are 4 new profiles 2 of them are catfish, 2 of them are real players. You can
Ooh.
look through the profiles and the photos. You can have circle conversations with each one of them.
Ooh, I like that.
But then you have to try and guess who the 2 real players are, and those 2 players will join the circle, and the other 2 are not going to join.
Right, because you would say, I mean, you could even just say which 2 would you want back. But again, given the apparent motto of the circle is catfish suck, like they're going to vote for who they think are the 2 real people. I kind of like that like circle speed dating.
Right.
Hey, it's almost like how they started BB23, or how they pick their teams based on like 30-second sound bites. Like you look at someone's bio, look at someone's picture, maybe have a quick chat with them, and you're like, I'm going to vote for this person. Could be a really interesting way. I understand to your point, Taran, from a logistics perspective. I think they would want to sort of like also make some eyes pop by being like, oh, coming up on this batch of the circle, someone new is going to come in. I am intrigued. In any edition, did they pop up that message before of, hey, don't worry, nobody else is coming in this time?
I think they usually do. Yeah, like the circle is now complete. No new players will be joining.
Maybe it's same. The Vince stuff also understandably threw a spanner into the works, right? Of like, oh, wait, there are actually people in here who aren't real whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a little tough to think through.
And did that just die? Like they were questioning it for a little bit and then nothing else.
First of all, let me just say, I knew they were going to throw him under the bus with explaining that this was right. And so like, I was like, you better be careful, Nick. But yeah, they talked, and then it never came up again.
They're like, I think it might be Nick. Okay. And then like just kept it moving. It never affected him. So I don't know if that's a testament to like Nick's like really good gameplay, or did they just not care? How did they not care?
Yeah, hold on. How did nobody think, is Jackie even a new person, or is she just another
like we just got tricked by a fake person? Maybe that's why they had that gamer question, right? Of like, well, truly this person might know ghosts, but do they know games? No one could be that multifaceted.
I fully would have suspected James. I would have been like, Jackie has got to be James. Look, look at that.
Yeah. I think Isabella was the only one to say, oh, are you a real person or are you a ghost?
Yeah.
But
to be fair, Isabella also thought that Vince was Lil Yachty. So
she said, oh my God, was he Lil Yachty this whole time?
Imagine
I love the moment too.
Lil Yachty being like, yep, that's me. Yep, I've played in the game for 2 minutes. Sorry.
I love the moment too where Jackson is visiting Nick and he's like, what are you thinking of Vince?
Right?
Yeah, I'm also Vince. Wait, what? Like that was a great moment. I love that.
Yes. He really wanted to hear like her say how great Vince was, how much of a great guy. It was just like, all right, come on. Okay, now I'm gonna drop the bomb. It was like, okay.
I loved that burner twist. I feel like they need to do it more often so that there's more paranoia on like, is this even not only is this a catfish, but is this a burner account?
Right.
It plays very well into the theme of the show. And I love watching people like have conversations with themselves and another person. Like more of this, more like if the catfish are getting tired, just introduce more burner accounts.
Right. It'd be cool too if they did like a bot that like had like the same 10 phrases and see how long it took for them to realize.
Yes.
But then if James says that someone's a very valuable member of the circle, then you're like, uh-oh, they got botted.
Right.
Buying followers. They're just pumping out the same things.
Just dropping links, just random links, just over and over in the circle chat.
Yeah, what if they like cast like a programmer who's like, I'm actually not going to be on the circle myself. I've just written an algorithm.
Right? Because then we sort of get like the mooch in Celebrity Big Brother, right? Like the fake circle player. But yeah, I'm just coming in to like cause chaos and throw some stuff out there. I'm not
they did that before.
Can we get the Rupert bot to play the circle?
Yeah, they did that in one of the celebrity UK ones, right? Or he was a celebrity, and his job was just to come in for 24 hours and just be as chaotic as possible to get himself voted out. And it was so funny.
I think that's why Isabella thought it was Lil Yachty, right? Like she was like, "Oh, it's just like that when that celebrity came in for a brief period of time."
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man.
That would have been so cool if it was Little Yachty.
Right.
I would have just loved if somehow like Vince for some reason made it to the finale and like Lil Yachty comes into the room, like in the dinner.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? You were on our TV.
Right.
You were playing us.
Oh man. Well, okay. So this final twist is that the two influencers are anonymous, and they are going to discuss anonymously who to block. And I'm wondering if it took 6 hours because they had to talk around the fact of like who they were. Because I just didn't like. It sounded interesting to begin with, but then was it that interesting that they were anonymous? Because what was the point of like what's the point of being anonymous? What does it matter?
Yeah, exactly. I would have just honestly preferred the regular secret influencer here. That way, like we may have gotten, depending on who was number one, they could have had the option to block a bigger threat in their own alliance. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Usually they do the like single influencer, right? Like the single influencer blocks the sixth place player is how they usually enter it. So I feel like we're a bit results oriented though. I think what really didn't help was that it was the exact same two people. I think had it been two other people that would have helped, and I think maybe then and also I think due to the circumstances, you had these two sides against each other. If it was more of like a loosey-goosey dynamic, maybe people would be like, it's anonymous, nobody's gonna know who blocked who, let me take the shot so like I'm not blamed for anything. But I think just due to repeating the same circumstances and the dynamics pretty much being the exact same thing, we got pretty much like going down the line now of what would have happened if it had been the same thing anyway.
Right. Yeah, it was just weird, like watching them be like, I'm trying to fake, I'm trying to make sure that they don't know who I am in this conversation. It's like, why? Like, does it really impact all that much? Like they were like, I'm gonna throw some shade on this person, and then they're not gonna know that it's me. But it's like that's just like taking a shot at your own case that you're gonna try to make later. Like, like is this really that valuable?
If anything, I think I like what Nick kind of tried to do, but he didn't commit enough. I would have went in there, if I was James, I would have went in there pretending to be Kay so that I could save. Well, that's what I thought. I thought at least pretend to be somebody else so they get the message like, oh, if I think that's Kay, that means I can't block Kay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I would have been like when I was thinking when James was like, okay, I don't think it's Ashley anymore. I'm going to say, let's block Ashley. I was like, I wonder if Nick could just be like, actually, I am Ashley. So I guess it's got to be Jackie.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought the play here might have been just thinking just like outside the box. If James had gone in to be either Isabella or Ashley to say like, to get Nick comfortable enough, but he hasn't had enough conversations with them in order to be able to talk similar to them. But it's like, if I'm Isabella, hey, I think we might need to go against Ashley because I've had some private chats with her where she wants to eventually block you. She's been talking and, she thinks that, she wants to get you on her good side for now. It would be just, it would be far-fetched, but it's something to try to get Nick comfortable enough.
I think that's, if you have perfect information, that's the move, right? Is to go you're essentially going undercover. You're saying like, oh, I'm actually part of your thing, so give me all the secrets. I also would not be surprised in the least if they were not allowed to say who they are. If James didn't type like, hey, what's up? It's James. Who's this? They're like, nope, sorry.
They're like, I'm not typing that.
You gotta make the mystery happen.
After 6 hours, there's no chance that they hadn't figured it out, right? Like,
exactly.
We see that James figures it out because, like you said, like I think Nick did an okay job from what we saw of pretending to be Ashley, but immediately gives up the goat when he, thinks with his other head. When it's like, what are you doing? Like, well, actually, I think she's a very, beautiful person inside. It's Nick. We absolutely know that it's Nick.
Yeah. It's like, what's the value in it? Like at that point, like, what does it even matter?
Yeah, honestly, I just think throw the whole twist away. Just do the regular super influencer because that's where you're more likely going to have a oh my gosh outcome than still having two secret influencers secret from each other. happen. But Mike Bloom did point out that maybe if it was two different people, it would have been a more interesting twist. But I don't know because we didn't see it. And it was not interesting.
Speaking of anonymity, I want to talk about like the Savage Questions game, because I feel like we got like two versions of the same game almost, right? Like we had the Circle of Fortune one that was essentially ask a brutal question to somebody and then answer it about someone else, and then it was like, okay, now you can ask someone a question but anonymously. It was interesting. Like we had the reviews game as well. I can't tell if they like the anonymous games more or the ones where people have to like actually put things behind their picture.
I liked, I feel like this cast was also a lot more open about like, all right, you know what, screw it, Kay's my rival, I think Isabella's a catfish. Like they went with pointed questions. I did appreciate that about this cast.
Yeah, but the thing I didn't like about Savage Questions was there were no repercussions. Like you said previously, Taran, like I need some repercussions, or I need them to be like, oh, whatever your question is, if it asks for a name, you got to put a name, because all they did was just cop out. They all just copped out.
Wasn't it Kay, right, who was like, who deserves to be blocked? She's like, the person who did not spend too much time to get to know everybody. We're like, don't give like a pageant answer, Kay. Okay?
Yeah. No, I didn't like Ashley's. Oh, pick either I go home or I flip a coin. Like, get out of here.
I actually felt like Ashley's was pretty good in the sense that like fully didn't give anything away. It was a cop out, but like also didn't give anything. I felt like Kay's was a cop out, and also she kind of still said a name. Like it was the worst of both worlds.
And it wasn't like we got Kay saying like, "Oh, I think it should be Jackie." So, but let me kind of like flower it up. It wasn't even as if she thought it should be Jackie. She just wanted to say an answer that would be pleasing to everybody. It was like, no, now everyone just thinks you should have just said Jackie.
Yeah,
and like in being ambiguous like that allows the possibility for somebody to be like, oh, is she talking about me?
Exactly. Yeah. You're like, oh, Kay's coming after me. All right, like say what you want to about what Ashley does during that Circle of Fortune thing, right? Like really essentially guaranteeing she never becomes an influencer again by saying F you, F you, Kay. I don't like you. I think that, at least in that case, creating a specific target helps insulate you a little bit by like having other people say, okay, well, I know she's definitely not coming after me. In this case, right, Kay put up some vagary so that unfortunately everyone could kind of make a case of, because I think Kay specifically said like, who doesn't deserve the money? The person who deserves the money should be whoever like survived more in the circle. And that is such a loose term that you have people like Ashley, like someone like Isabella could be like, okay, is it me because I came in late? Could James think it could be him because he came in late? Like there's so many rationales you can assign to that.
Yeah. I just didn't like that they were copping out.
Yeah, like what you said with like, okay, some type of repercussions. Could it be that, oh, if you don't answer the question directly, we're adding a rate, like a bottom or last place rating to your next ratings, so then it brings down your average.
Oh, interesting.
Well, so I think the thing that made the first one work with Ashley is that it was like send your angry emoji whatever to the person who is your rival. It's like you have to send it to one person. There's no words, you're just sending an emoji. And so I feel like constricting the players in that way I think is the way to like really force them to get in there. But I also feel like when it comes to like the games and stuff, I would like more like it needs to matter. Like if the goal of the game is to whatever, then you should be encouraged to actually go along with that goal.
My other thought process is which question type do you guys think is better? Do you think James with the question of Ashley, who do you trust more, Nick or Isabella? do you think that type of question is better, or did you think Kay's question was better in a sense of, Isabella, do you really like Nick? Or are you just playing it up? Like, because one of them is basically saying your opinion and getting your opinion out there, and then the answer doesn't kind of really matter, while the other one is setting up the answer to matter and try to cause a rift.
Yeah, so I feel like when it comes to these questions, and I felt like Nick was the worst with this, but you know, others were like, Nick's was the
gamer.
Are you really a gamer?
Where it's like if you try to ask a leading question like that, what you're really doing is just putting out an anonymous statement. And you are the person making an assertion, and you're giving the other person an opportunity to defend themselves. Whereas you know, the question that I think it was Ashley asked of Kay, who do you think is the least deserving? It's you are putting out the question and you are letting them put out the shady statement. Like that is the way to go about it, right? So the more you try to lead, the less effective it is. So like when Kay asks Isabella, are you playing Nick? That's the assertion, and then she gets to be like, no.
Yeah, it was such an easy tee up, because like essentially what they're saying is like, hey, anonymous question, Isabella, doesn't Nick suck? And she's like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't suck. And it's like, okay, I guess that's open and shut, right? There's no false. So I agree. I think like honestly, any questions that make you be forced to say a name, I think is the best form of questioning. Like because then there's no way to talk around it, right? Unless you do what Kay does.
Well, I was about to say we had two people talk around names,
but then you look like you're avoiding answering the question.
Yeah, like I think an even more effective question for James could have been, "Hey, Ashley, who is the person that you are most loyal to, or who's the person that you're closest to?" And instead of like naming those two people so that she can go like, I couldn't choose between these two people. Instead, it's like, who is the one person she might not have thought to be like, I'm going to name both of my alliance members to you right now. Like, I'm not going to give you that information. And so her answer is probably going to come off as even sketchier if she goes, I'm loyal to everybody, or whatever, right? So I feel like you give as little information as possible in the question and force it out of the other person to be sketchy. I think that is the goal.
It's the move.
The question came up to me because if you're asking a question and 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be a cop-out answer, why not just kind of get your seeds in there? You know what I'm saying? Why not just try and water the plants in people's minds? But you're right. When you do that, you give them a chance to rebut it, as opposed if you talk about them behind their back and tell people individually, oh, I don't think Jackie is a gamer, and just not there to defend herself.
Especially if it's something that's already in people's heads. You're just putting it out there to allow somebody to address it finally. Whereas like, you know, if people think that Isabella is playing Nick, they secretly think that Isabella has no way of defending herself about that. She can't just come out of the blue when nobody's actually said it and be like, by the way, I'm not playing Nick, because that would be super sketchy. So when everyone thinks it secretly, it's very powerful. The second you put it out there, she gets to go, how dare you? No, I'm not playing Nick. And now, you know, it's much different.
So I think, could something that helps parlay a bit into what Taran wants from these games, should they do more with the Circle Awards, or like in this case, right, the superlatives with the prom? Because they did that last season, they did that this season. Like the MVP is obviously the big one, though it ends up doesn't really matter here, right? James and Nick both get it. I love the fact that they essentially canceled each other out by being like, oh, I'm gonna like really throw them under the bus and rank them the top, and then they both end up at the top. But I do wonder if you make it, I mean, honestly, it's like the Survivor old touchy subjects challenge, right? Like who is leading the game right now? Who probably won't win? Like, I wonder if you honestly turn down the high school aspects and turn up more of like the ugly truth aspects of like, you know, most duplicitous or like most likely to be a catfish, then maybe that helps shine a light a little bit more. And again, the game literally forces you to say a name,
right?
And maybe be a little bit strategic.
Yeah.
As opposed to like class clown is obviously going to be James. Like it's
right. A whole comedian. Yeah.
Right. I have appreciated the narration this season. I think there was one time when I went like, oh, really? But apart from that, I either didn't notice or actually giggled.
Yes.
So
With Michelle,
it has not always been my favorite, but this has been a better season.
It is interesting with
totally
Michelle,
agree.
because I've talked to the narrator for Love Island, and like he very much crafts all of his lines. Like there's no writer's room. Like he'll watch the show and like write his own dialogue. Michelle's a comedian. I wonder if she does the same thing, or if like Netflix is feeding her things to say, because that's more done obviously a lot more in post than Love Island, which is done basically like week to week.
Yeah.
And sorry, speaking of the superlatives thing, and the chat's kind of wanting us to talk about it. They do not give them enough pictures, like at all. Like James still only had like the 2, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think Nick had 3, but it's just like, let them come on. Let's do something where we get more pictures. I do want them to, because revealing some of the pictures is where you get some of the distrust. Like people would get a second picture, like, I don't believe this. I think that's a catfish. You know, like I wish we had more of those moments, because on this season all we had was like the old school photos, and then that's how Michelle got. You know, people started double thinking about Michelle. So, man, more like that, please.
Yeah, well, listen, here's my hot take. I say change your photos after every blocking. I think when someone's
that would be
cool. You're like,
I like
all right,
that.
my album, change my photo. Like, I think that at least allows you to cycle through some stuff, and that'll also inspire other conversations too, right? Like, oh, here's Michelle's picture with her horse, and they're like, hey, Blue Michelle, loved you on that horse. Like, tell me what kind it is. And they're like, oh crap, I don't know what kind of fish this is, or horse. Let me like try to describe. I think it'd be a fun way to just also stop people from just staring at the same photos each and every day for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that could be cool. But okay, let's of course, just as Mari gets blocked from the podcast.
She gave her opinions and then she left. She knew.
Let's talk about the finale. Let's try and speculate here. You know, obviously Nick, I think, has been the sort of dominant force in this game up until this point. But is he the winner? In the Circle, there really hasn't ever been a season of the Circle that I've seen, at least in the UK and the US, where you know, the person who has been the driving force of the season has actually won the season. It's usually that they were the driving force, and everybody knows they were the driving force,
right?
And somebody strategically rates them down, and just like that, somebody else ends up as the winner. But we do have, you know, we have Isabella and Ashley, both of whom love Nick. I mean, Daddy Nick, he's their favorite. They can't wait. They can't wait to hang out with Daddy Nick. And what did Mari walked into here?
Mari has another
angle. I know. I have no idea. That's never ever happened. What are we cursed today?
I
had
sent
to go
you
to my
energy.
external camera.
I know. I think Vince is spooking up this
seriously.
Place,
oh, Vince.
I'm having mic issues. Asia's having internet issues. Mari just got blocked.
Just went off.
Luckily, Mike Bloom is here to hold us down.
Now a piece of roof is gonna fall on me, Terry. This is my end right now. This is my final podcast.
Oh my gosh. This is so janky.
So okay, I think what we should do is quickly run through the final 5 and try and guess, like, are they going to rate emotionally or strategically?
Okay.
And I think if we can kind of agree on these, then we'll have a decent idea of where we think the finale is going to go, right? I think we probably all agree James and Kay will both vote with their, at least when it comes to each other, I think they'll vote with their heart.
Yes.
I think James would probably do something like Kay number 1, you know, Nick number 4.
Yeah,
I think so. And I think he might put Isabella number 3 then, just because
Same.
He doesn't necessarily like her, but it's like, if I really want to sink Nick, then I'll put who would probably be my number 4 from a popularity perspective, but I'll put her number 3.
Yeah. And then Kay, I feel like would do James number 1, Nick number 2.
Yes.
Maybe like Isabella Ashley. I mean, they both had conversations with her.
Yeah, but I feel like she liked. I'm trying to remember.
Ashley.
She cried.
Oh, you know what? She
during
did
the
have a
Ashley
really big
conversation.
reaction to Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley
Mhm.
Isabella is
Because I think
probably
and we could talk about that too. Like, I think it shows why Matthew, I think, is actually a really, really, really good catfish. And I think part of it is
I
because
agree.
he's essentially playing himself, right? Like his coming
Right.
out story as Ashley
Mhm.
was his coming out story. I think the fact is, like, he honestly is himself with just a veneer on it, as opposed to Sophia, who I think is pushing down a bigger part of herself and being like, well, I know my sister, my sister Sophia. It's a little tougher to do, to be 1 degree removed from that. And so I think Kay kind of felt that. Like you said, like, I think Kay is a fantastic bleeding heart of the circle. And the fact that she felt Isabella, even though she came first, her pitch was like, I understand what you're doing, versus Ashley, who like came in hat in hand, and Kay's like weeping, saying like, that means so much to me. I think just shows the emotional impact that these two have had and how they differ from each other.
I could even see Kay doing Ashley second and Nick
Same.
third.
That's why I was confused. That's why I was questioning was if
That's
Kay
true.
would actually do Nick second. Everyone, I think all 6 or 5 of them know Nick is, like, even Nick himself, he knows he's highly rated. And so I think Kay knowing that, but yeah, I think she still will think with her heart, like, I've been with Nick. We've come to an agreement. I would be happy if he won. If I didn't win, I would want him or James to win. So yeah, he's definitely going 2 or 3 for her.
Yeah.
So then it's, we have Isabella. And I think Isabella is very strategic. But I also think that she is a little bit concerned that I think the guilt about leading somebody on, like, I can't see her putting Nick third or fourth just on like, I'm going to disappoint him potentially and also be the reason he loses. Like, I don't know about that. I feel like she's putting him at least 1 or 2. Maybe she puts Ashley 1.
Ashley
Nick
1.
2,
Yep.
thinking this is my way of being strategic. And so, that's what I'm going to do there. And then probably
Kay third.
Probably Kay third and James last.
Yeah.
Because James has been influencer and up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
then
then
James has also had no qualms, like, saying, Isabella, you're on my shit list, right?
That's true.
So like, why would I rank this person high?
Because she's already expecting him to rate her 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So then we haven't really talked a lot about Ashley/Matthew, but I actually really enjoy Matthew on the show. I think that he's also very funny. And even though he can be a little like biting at times, he also like has, I think like a big heart, which I appreciate. But he's also a very strategic player, but he also like loves Nick. So he's the one I feel like I have he's the hardest to read for me in terms of like, where does Ashley go?
Yeah. I think strategic, honestly, because I think we didn't talk about the family videos because who cares? But like, I think
2 weeks, right? I go on vacations that length, and I don't need a family video.
My mom just not even check in.
If you're like, all right, gotta get a message from my family and on my 2-week vacation.
Yeah. So
you are the bravest and strongest person I know, Aysha.
Like, Mom, I'm in Cancun. Like, what?
Hi, I know you're
happening?
catfishing as me on your trip to Mexico, so I just wanted to send you a message of inspiration.
So I think Ashley/Matthew will go completely strategic to me, and
does that mean like Nick and James third and fourth?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
And I think she rates Isabella first because she knows that Isabella's going to rate lower, and so she's like, let me sort of like throw that out there to purposely push everyone else down. I think I could see Matthew very easily doing that.
So like Isabella, Kay, Nick, James, something like that.
I could definitely see that.
And that's what I was thinking. I was kind of like, when I was talking to my husband about this, I was like, is there a world where if the 3 people from the band who are strategic voters, could you see them like trying to push other people down by putting Kay in second place because she's been in the bottom so many times that she gets so many second places she ends up pulling it out?
Well, I think that's why they might hesitate, because I think they're all still worried, like Kay is still like, they're still thinking about Kay in those first 2 weeks and how she's so popular. So I don't know. But so then there's Nick. And I think Nick would absolutely go strategic.
For sure.
He has deals with all 4 of these people.
Everybody,
at this point. I think, if he was leaning toward his heart, he would rate the band higher. But does he do that? Would he potentially go something like Kay, Isabella in first and second? I don't know which one first and which one second, and then maybe James and Ashley. But he probably puts, I don't know.
I think he puts
tough.
Ashley above James because, well, we like we said, we don't know if he really came away from the influencer chat knowing that James was on the other side. But if he has an inkling that it was James on the other side, then I think I think he definitely puts James last,
right,
to try and get him down.
Which means Ashley's probably third at the lowest.
I think he could rate Isabella first, and I think it could be a personal thing. I think the way he talked about her in that secret influencer chat, I think that's a little bit of like Nick's personal feelings leaking through. And actually, I would not be surprised if while we have someone like Matthew play a little bit of a personal game and vote strategically at the end against that parabola, I would not be surprised if someone like Nick is like, I played a game to get this far. I'm happy with where I am. It'd be great to win, but like, I really like Isabella. It'd be really great if she won. Let me throw in at first. Plus, sort of like with the Ashley logic, right? Like, she's probably not really being rated very highly by James or Kay. So this is a way to also bump other people down.
Yeah. So according to my very quick math here, based on what we're predicting, that if we are correct in this,
so saying that Nick would rate Kay, which spot?
Honestly, the one that matters to me is Ashley, because as long as he doesn't put Ashley last, I think Ashley wins according to all of these other ratings.
Okay.
Wow.
Really?
Because if James does Kay, Ashley's in second place. If Isabella puts Ashley first and James second, that's a first place. If Kay is putting Ashley second or third, then if second would be amazing for Ashley. And then if Nick puts Ashley second or third, as long as she gets one of those seconds from either Kay or Nick, then I think she wins.
No, it makes sense.
And Ashley gets no bottoms, right?
Exactly.
She gets no bottoms. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that I think if we're looking at that trio of the band, there's a chance that people put Nick at the bottom strategically and people put Isabella on the bottom personally.
Yeah.
And there's someone like Ashley who's always sitting in the middle. And sometimes with this, it's like the Amazing Race, right? Like, you don't need to be first as long as you're not last.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah. Because I have Kay and James putting Isabella last. Both of them putting Isabella last. And then maybe Isabella and Nick putting James last at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, according to what we're saying here, it's looking real bad for James. I think he'd probably be last place.
Yeah.
Are we saying anybody puts Kay last?
I don't
think so.
I think we saw anybody put Kay last, but she's probably got a couple thirds. And probably no firsts except for James. But no first from the band, likely. Kay probably like a close, like somewhere second, third, I would say. And I think Isabella could be up there as well if we think that Nick might put her first and Ashley might put her first. And then Nick, I think if the thing is you get one last placement, it's very difficult to win. And so if we're correct and James puts Nick in last place, then I don't think Nick can win unless he definitely gets like firsts from both Isabella and Ashley.
It's interesting though, because I think if people are voting, it's weird.
That's interesting.
If people are voting strategically, then I agree that James is probably near the bottom, as is Nick, because of like what they just were able to exhibit. But if people are voting personally, I think someone like James has a really good chance to win because he's in good with like Isabella's the only one that he hasn't had a conversation with. But like, I think if Ashley rates personally, I think he's definitely above Kay. Like, there's an opportunity, but I think it really has to depend on what the split is. But it is wild to think about how the two, most powerful people in the game this entire week have a good chance of landing in those two bottom spots at the end.
Yeah, and especially because, again, we don't see their strategizing in terms of like where they want to place people and why, in terms of like the battle between these two alliances. But at this point, especially for the band, the other side has not been able to be as coordinated, I think. But everybody should have a pretty good idea of how it works. Like how they've gotten Nick into the top 2 spots, how they've gotten James into the top 2 spots each time. Like, I think they've got it down to a formula, and that's why Nick, Daniel, James, is because they were like, this is how we do it. Isabella and Ashley, we both put Nick number 1. We both, and the same for the other one. If we don't do it, so if we follow through with that again, if we do the same thing, then Nick's just going to win. So they have to change, even if they are loyal to Nick. So, it really does feel like it's unlikely that we'd see the same 2 top people.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I did like seeing Isabella, Sophia saying like, I'm so close, I want to win this, rather than like her and Ashley having the mentality of, oh, as long as, it's someone from the band, then I'm okay. The fact that they are so close and they want to win, then that gives me some optimism about how they're going to rate people.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, if Nick wins, it's solely based on Isabella and Ashley wanting to stick to the alliance even to the end.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, if the thing is, if James puts Nick 3rd and Isabella last, that could theoretically open the door. Like if James puts Nick 3rd, Kay puts Nick 2nd, then even if Nick gets like second and second from Isabella and Ashley, I think he now probably wins.
Yeah.
2 seconds and 2 thirds, probably not a win. But 3 seconds and 1 third is possible. So
right. Because I'm looking here. If we're saying maybe Nick puts, or did I say this? I don't know. But because I'm looking at my thing, because I'm looking like if Ashley is voting strategically and she gives Kay 2nd, does Nick give Kay 2nd as well? Again, what if Isabella gives Kay 2nd instead of Nick and switches them out, and then James gives Kay 1? You know
That's
what I'm saying?
Definite win.
Yeah.
So like that would be basically we're saying we'll just have to see, and it might be it might be a tie, or it might be a tie again. And then if it's a tie, it goes by what the highest placement, how many first
places. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I think it's gonna be, despite again like the sort of on-offness I feel with the cast, it's going to be a really interesting finish either way, because either Nick and Kay, 2 of the biggest characters, win. Either James wins, who was the first latecomer in Circle US history to win, or we get a Sophia or a Matthew win, which are wins at Catfish, which is also very fun. So like honestly, I think we're in for a good winner either way. I think the way this season has shook out, there really has been like nowhere to hide, to use parlance from another reality show. And so I think it's allowed people to sort of like do a little bit more darting and like force themselves to show their cards more than any season beforehand. So we don't necessarily get that sort of like, not to besmirch Joey, but like this idea right of like, oh, okay, this sort of came out of nowhere, but fine. I'm from a storytelling perspective, I'm really excited to see how this ends, because I feel like all 5 people had such different paths to the game that I feel like the arc would feel complete with their win.
Yeah, well, that's what we are looking at heading into next week's finale. I
have one more question.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Before you wrap this up, in what order should they bring them into the hangout to meet each other?
Well,
honestly, I haven't even thinking about the meeting, just because like
So I think it's going to be Nick and Isabella first, because remember they did this with Chloe and Delisa last season, right? It's like, okay, we have the budding romance. They want to make sure they also do it where it's just the 2 of them, so there's no like awkward circumstances. And then I think from that perspective, because I'm just basing it off of last season, if I remember correctly, Lee was the last one to come in, right, as River.
Yes.
So then from that logic, I think that
Ashley,
Matthew would enter last, because that's like the big shock, right? Of, oh my God, you were a catfish the entire time.
And I think we kind of saw that in the teaser a little bit. I think when he came in, there was everybody was
there.
Yeah.
I didn't watch again. I've been scared.
I know.
I think
I
you have
know.
no reason to
I didn't
considering what
want
they did
to,
you, yeah.
but it started.
I think something like Nick, Isabella, Kay, James, Ashley.
I think that's the order. Because I feel like they would want Kay's reaction to Isabella with only just Nick there, because even Nick thinks that Kay is a catfish, or originally thought. He's kind of, but even the preview was him saying like, I thought you were a catfish the whole time. And then James, and then end off with Matthew.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one. Yeah.
So, and here's another question I'll throw out there. I don't know. Is the fan favorite voting up yet for the Circle? I know there's.
I think it is.
Other fan favorite focuses going on elsewhere in reality.
Right. I was like, I just looked at my phone. I'm like, wait a minute. did it restart?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because that's always been. So I remember Sammy won it in season 1. Who won it in season 2? Chloe.
Well, that's
Chloe
the thing. Did she? I don't even remember.
I don't remember that.
Where they come out with the news like 3 days after the show finishes. So
it was such a big thing in the UK season 1 that it was like half the prize money was the fan favorite award almost. And then but then in the US it's just like it's not even.
Yeah. So I don't know. I could see. It depends. Like maybe I could see Kay getting it. I think I could see.
So I follow Roxana on Instagram because I just needed a little bit more of her. I think she has a great personality, and she's been advertising for like vote for me, vote for me. So I think it could possibly be her in the top 3 at least, and maybe even a Daniel. I mean, I know that. Mike, you're on like the other side of it, but
are there people on my side?
I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was thinking like who might get it, I forgot that like blocked players could even get it. You know, like I don't know. Like I didn't even
interesting
think
though, because both
them.
Seasons it was someone who made the finale. So it's a good point.
Because my immediate thought was it's got to be either Nick or Kay. I mean, they have been the stars of the season in terms of like airtime. And I think that like with Nick, it seems I think you either love him or hate him.
Yeah.
And then like I think most people love Kay. But she's a little bit less visible. Throughout.
I don't know. Maybe there's a push for James because again, James has been one of them. He's a latecomer, but he's been one of the more vocal players. And I think there might
love
be
James. Yeah,
I love James. Again, I love the personal content he brought. I think if you have to choose 1 second photo, I think the one that he chose was great. The conversation that he had with Ashley might like honestly do really well for him and if certain ratings fall a certain way. So I'm really I would love for him to do that, but I also wonder, I don't think that many people are thinking like us, like look at the moves that he made. Can we vote this guy fan favorite?
Well, I actually like the one family video I did like was him and his brother. Like that was really amazing. Steelers aside, I really, I really did like their conversation, and I definitely was tearing up. I think that was the one that I really felt the most.
Yeah, that's the one thing I will say. It wasn't even the fan. I thought maybe I would have teared up from the family or the family videos, but I actually teared up for the reasons why people want to win. I was like, what is happening to me? I felt like it was so
snap out of it.
What is this? It just felt so genuine, and just I really liked that. So a couple of moments in this batch of episodes.
Yeah, those TBD. I don't know. Some of the wishes they're giving out, right? Like Matthew, what'd he say? He like wanted to help his sister, down payment on his parents' house, and it's like $100,000 does not go very well.
Especially before taxes.
66,000, you mean?
Yeah, it's like okay. It's like I appreciate it. Your head's in the right place, your heart's in the right place, but I loved Isabella's.
Yeah. Basically saying I'm gonna spin it on me, but they're not gonna know that. So.
But then everyone's like, "Oh, that's so nice! Such a great,
such a great big sister."
Oh my god! I loved the real Isabella being like, "I still don't really get why you're using my photos."
Probably never even heard of the show at all. Like,
no, so this would be interesting though. If for season 4 they brought in the real Isabella and like she has to play as herself, they're like, okay, this definitely can't be the real Isabella. So what is it?
We're not gonna fall for this one. Come on.
And also Nick's dog made an appearance. Like we can't change the photos. He does get to see his dog there. So I enjoyed it. Again, like it's a 2-week expedition, but it's nice to, even though it's backloaded personal content, we're at least getting it at the end here so that, like you said, even if someone we're not necessarily personally invested in wins, we like understand who they are fundamentally as a person and what they're going to try to spend the money on before it runs out incredibly quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's what we have for you this week. We will be back next week. I believe we plan to record sometime on Friday for the finale. So if you want to catch our coverage, you can catch it there. Obviously, we're going to get the Big Brother finale on Wednesday as well, and Survivor is going to be on. So plenty of stuff to cover here in the coming week. But I can't wait to see how this one plays out. Again, I have to say, I've really just enjoyed how this season has played out. It gives me a little bit more hope, I think, moving forward. You know, when season 3 of The Circle popped up out of nowhere, I was kind of like, did we need this already? But I've enjoyed it. It's been a nice distraction from some other shows.
Yeah. Exactly.
So find that. You can also, of course, find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. If you want to find all our Big Brother coverage, you can find all of the stuff here on Robazib Podcast. If you go to robazibwebsite.com/subscribe, you can choose what you want to subscribe to there. And you can find me on Twitter as well, at Armstrong Taran. Mike, where can people find you?
Doing so much stuff. So I guess I'll start with Circle stuff specifically. I am going to be talking to all 5 of these people that we were just speculating wildly about. I was able to speak with Calvin. I will be asking them all about their final ratings, so don't you worry.
Okay, but did you get to talk to Vince?
Oh no, that's the thing. Here's what we need: when they bring out the blocked players, we need a cardboard cutout of Vince.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be talking with Nick, Kay, Sophia, Matthew, and James. I'm going to be talking. Those are all going to be up probably like day of finale at parade.com. So check that out. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of insight. Like you said, very gamey cast. I'm sure they're going to give a lot of insights as to their journey over the course of everything. But of course, that's not the only reality show I'm writing about. I am doing a Big Brother Exit Press. And if you saw Thursday night's episode, you know you're going to want to check out that interview because words cannot describe it. If I have to, I can't even sum it up with one emoji to send to Kay. It's certainly an interview worth checking out. And Survivor as well. I got to talk to the first 2 eliminated players, which was a really great time. From a podcast perspective, of course, covering everything on the B&B. Leon and I just about like 4 hours ago recorded a really fun podcast with Maggie Morgan and Kirsten McInnes, recapping what I thought was a really fun 2-hour premiere of Survivor. We're doing a Big Brother B&B to wrap it up next week. And then over on post-show recaps, I'm doing Lost with Josh Wigler, going down the hatch. I'm covering the X-Files with my wife. So yeah, I am lots of content going on at the moment, but I'm so happy that I got the opportunity to come on and talk with you all. I think that, in my opinion, like I've liked each Circle US season better than the last. I agree. I don't know if 2 seasons a year is necessarily needed, but I've been enjoying it. And all I'm saying is, like, producers, if you're listening, give me my all catfish season. That's all I want right now. That's the wish list for me. But I'm so excited to see how this all finishes, and especially to see how these people reflect on their journeys. Oh, and now you can follow all this stuff at a Mike Bloom type.
All right. Mari, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mari Talks Too Much, but also every week on the Wrestling Wrap Up podcast, where me and Matt Scott go over the week in wrestling highlights. So come check us out. You don't need to watch wrestling. This is for casual fans, diehard fans. Just come and hang out with us. Your favorite RHAP podcasters will be on talking about the very weird, wonderful world of wrestling. Also, you can find me. I was on the BuzzFeed Daily podcast last week talking about the cookout. That was really fun. If you want to check that out, you can go to my Twitter. It's on my pinned tweet. You can look at that. I will be on the 90 Day Fiance podcast this week with Kuya. I love
such a good season.
Yes. Oh my God. So good. I love hopping back on the Hot Mess Express. So that's going to be so fun, but just keep a lookout. I post everything I do on Twitter at Mari Talks Too Much.
All right. And Aysha.
Yeah, everybody can find me on Twitter at Aysha like Asia, so AYSHA like ASIA. I realized at the top of the podcast I said this was my third time talking to Taran. It was actually my fourth time talking to Taran this week.
Oh my God!
Right?
The week of Asia.
Right.
All right, we know who you're rating number one in these final ratings.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. I like Asia content, so I'm good.
Yeah, I can definitely trust Aysha to keep me safe as influencer.
Right. Exactly.
He's a very valuable member of your circle.
Right. Yeah. Very valuable member. So we had the Survivor 41 preseason draft. That was a lot of fun. So if you haven't checked that out, go watch it. See who drafted the grenade. And then I was on the Big Brother. Well, to wrap up Survivor content, I was also joined Taran on the Survivor Stock Watch. So that was a lot of fun. So definitely go check that out. We went through the season or the season premiere with a fine tooth comb, had a great time. And then also I was on the Big Brother Roundtable this past Tuesday, and we had a great time talking about this Final Four and how we wish it was like 3 weeks longer,
Yeah.
Right. Why must it end? And then also I co-host the Married at First Sight Wrap Up. So we talk about five couples who met at the altar and they go through this 8-week experiment. So definitely go check that out. This past episode was wild. And along the way, we have fun guests, and Mari has come on to talk. So definitely go check that out.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.